So, Aljamain Sterling, why is he on the prelims with Movsar? Now, obviously, he was on the prelims beforehand, I believe, when he was fighting Calvin Kattar, and that was his featherweight debut. Now, with Aljamain Sterling, he certainly does divide the fan base. You've either forgiven him for how he's won the bantamweight title or not, because you probably saw his fights later and said, okay, he's done enough to earn forgiveness, and some people are just never going to forgive him for that. And you know what? I can't argue against the people who are still looking at that title win, if they could call it that, and saying, oh yeah, he shouldn't be, even, calling himself champion or something like that. I get that perspective. All right. But I also disagree with it entirely because he did defend it a couple times against some really high-level competition. Cejudo was a really close fight, but people forget Cejudo, although he took years off, he did retire, quote-unquote, pretty early because, he didn't want to take too much damage. So when he came in fresh, and he did really good. Now, obviously, yeah, Sterling did the grounded thing, which, obviously is going to further divide the fan base. But if you're one of those people who just, Sterling, put him on the prelims, right? Movsar, a grappler, put him on the prelims. Because you know what? A lot of people would rather see stand and bang fights than some actual, just wrestling matches. Even though, yeah, Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie's on there. And I think the reason Kron Gracie's on the main card is because he's fighting Bryce Mitchell. If Kron was fighting Nate or something, I think they'd be on the prelims. But speaking of which, if there was one fight that I could justify you swapping places, it would probably be taking that Nate fight and putting Sterling on the main card, because I do think that should at least be the opening fight of the main card. It's not the most exciting, but it is high enough on the featherweight. Does this guy get a punch up into the rankings towards the title yet? Because the winner of this fight honestly should fight Diego Lopez for that spot, while Ilia Topuria versus Volkanovski is going down. This is the perfect door opener. And obviously, after Volk, people are going to say Lopez, and, anyone should wait their turn. But if anyone's going to wait their turn, I honestly think it should be the winner of Sterling versus Movsar, because Movsar beat Lopez. It was a close fight, but he still won, and he hasn't really lost since. And he's casting a shadow over the division. In fact, if anything, one of the most compelling fights right now would probably be Movsar versus Ilia Topuria, because Movsar, has a bit of an aura around him. Yeah, it's a wrestling aura, but Ilia Topuria's aura, a fight's a fight. If it's a 5-round thing where Movsar's on top, it doesn't matter how much jiu-jitsu Ilia Topuria knows, So I think, honestly, this is that perfect mix to see who's going to take that spot as the guy who's going to come up and get that next title shot. So with all the stake, I completely agree with Sterling that this should be on the main card. Now, Nate Landwehr, obviously, he's earned his right on the main card. He's an exciting fighter. He's a wild man, and he's definitely had his stake in the division. And honestly, I think if he wins this fight, he should fight the winner of Kron Gracie versus Bryce Mitchell, and I think he's going to have a really good shot against Bryce Mitchell or Kron Gracie, depending, because I'm going to wait for that Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie thing to blow over, because I know Bryce has been training with Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland is a really good striker. So if he learned anything really productive from Sean Strickland that time where they were training together, Bryce Mitchell might come back more dangerous. I'm not going to put too much money on it. I know that's a bit of a reach. We'll have to wait and see how that training camp goes down. But honestly, for Nate, if they were to move him to the prelims and then he gets the winner of that fight and then Sterling and Movsar, that would be the ideal world. But unfortunately, UFC is about promotion. UFC does make a lot of decisions that the fan base doesn't really agree with, or they do, depending on how much you hate Sterling. But other than that, that's what I got to say. I think it should be on the main card, but you know what? I'm going to be tuning in early to watch Eric Anders versus Chris Weidman anyway, so there's a lot of fights on the prelims and the early prelims that I'm looking forward to saying. Honestly, man, or seeing, not saying, I meant seeing. But UFC 310 is probably one of the most stacked cards we've had in a while since UFC 300. Okay, I'm going to be fair and say that. So when it's questionable who's going to be put on the main card, maybe it's not such an easy decision to make. But that's what I got to say. Now, going up, I'm going to start talking about some other fights in the prelims before I get to the main card ones. So stay tuned for those. Peace out. See you on the next one. Later.